What if our blue planet, the world that's protected life for literally billions of years, was just suddenly knocked off its peaceful drift around the sun? Boom, gone. Today, in this explainer, we're jumping right into the ultimate cosmic what if. No slow buildups, we are hitting the ground running.
I want you to imagine, just for a second, what actually happens when the very meaning of the word home gets rewritten in one single, unimaginable instant. If Earth were forced onto a catastrophic collision course with another world, we wouldn't just be dealing with a bad day on the news, right? We'd be facing the absolute ultimate finale of humanity itself. We're looking straight at a disaster that isn't measured in, fallen countries or collapsed economies, but in the destruction of the entire atmosphere itself. I mean, the ground, the oceans, the cities, every living thing, every mountain range, every digital archive, and every monument, all thrown into a massive collision. We are literally talking about the end of every story ever told. Because you have to remember, planets aren't just billiard balls floating around in a quiet room. They are enormous worlds, moving at tens of thousands of miles per hour, held in this incredibly delicate, life-sustaining cosmic rhythm by gravity. Earth has spent billions of years perfecting the conditions for life through a super precise dance with the sun. Breaking that rhythm? It means absolute total annihilation. So, how would we actually find out? Well, it's a fascinating and honestly terrifying story. It starts super quietly in observatories. Telescopes would spot these weird gravitational anomalies long before any impact. Computers would relentlessly try to correct the orbit, and astrophysicists would run simulations, absolutely refusing to believe their own numbers. But eventually, the undeniable truth gets out, sparking a level of planetary panic humanity has never, ever faced. Just frantic populations searching for answers where there just aren't any. And here's the really crazy part. The true horror begins way before any physical contact. The closer a rogue planet gets, the faster Earth's systems violently tear themselves apart. Invading gravity would totally destabilize our tides. Our orbital path would warp, climate patterns would completely collapse, and we'd see violently escalating storms alongside massive, continuous earthquakes across every single continent. Basically, the world would effectively end before the two planets even touched. So what do we do, right? You quickly realize you cannot simply evacuate an entire planet. All our normal earthly survival strategies are utterly useless here. The ultra-wealthy might try to retreat to underground bunkers, only to realize the Earth's entire crust is about to shatter. You can't evacuate across borders when there are literally no borders left. Even experimental space projects would be completely futile. I mean, you can't move 8 billion people into space on a whim. True salvation in this scenario? Completely impossible.
The crucial point to understand here is deeply psychological. An extinction-level event destroys the entire emotional structure of civilization because it abruptly deletes our future. Think about it for a second. Would you still go to work? Would you still plan a wedding, buy a house, or, argue with strangers online if the entire planet was doomed? Fear could sharpen selfishness in some, while others might suddenly forgive old grudges, simply because the future they used to delay that forgiveness, it just no longer exists. The unpredictability of our own social behavior would become a massive catastrophe, all on its own. A scenario like this forces us to confront our daily illusion of permanence. We live our lives assuming the ground beneath us is unshakable. We plan decades ahead, we build monuments, we pass laws assuming ultimate stability. But the reality of the cosmos is far, far different. We actually exist on borrowed time, protected only by distance, gravity, and a highly temporary orbital balance. The universe, frankly, is not required to protect us. And the scale of the threat? That might actually surprise you. It wouldn't even take an Earth-sized planet to doom us. A collision with a body just the size of Mars, which is only about half the size of Earth, would easily destroy civilization. The energy released would be so enormous that the surfaces of both worlds would literally shatter and fuse together. It's almost hard to wrap your head around. Now, let's look at the relentless physics of that final moment of contact. It is staggering. Atmospheric shockwaves would violently shake the globe, triggering massive volcanic systems instantly. We're talking tsunamis rising higher than the Himalayas. The sky would darken completely with vaporized rock and dust. And in that final instant of collision, the impact site becomes a furnace of thousands of degrees. Entire oceans would boil away in seconds, and vast continents would just be vaporized in a flash.
But what if we aren't the only victims here? Even in the face of total extinction, human curiosity kind of persists, right? Scientists would be urgently asking, what kind of planet is approaching us? Is it a dead, rocky world, or does it have an atmosphere? And really, the most haunting question of all, what if the approaching world harbored its own ancient biology?
If that were true, this whole thing becomes a much, much larger cosmic tragedy. We wouldn't just be witnessing a human disaster, but the total erasure of two unique histories, separate for eons, violently merging in the worst possible way. Think about it. Atmospheres mixing, shock heating, creating unbelievable chemical firestorms. Two entirely separate biological lineages just erased in a single strike. So what happens after the deafening surge of radiation and heat? Well, time marches on. First comes instant annihilation, where our surface geology is radically rewritten into a storm of molten rock. Then, over decades, that debris forms a chaotic, swirling disk of material orbiting the sun. And finally, over eons, gravity slowly gathers those remains into newborn, utterly lifeless worlds. The ultimate result of all this? Every physical thing we have ever built would be totally overwhelmed by the scale of destruction. Our libraries, our digital archives, our cities, completely erased. Earth would become nothing more than a terrifying legend in the cosmos. Future astronomers, if there even are any out there, might only know we existed by finding scattered data, cosmic fossils, or tiny artificial archives carrying the memory of our beautiful blue planet. And this is exactly why we dedicate so many resources to planetary defense. It really isn't just science fiction, it is the vital, everyday tracking of our solar neighborhood. We monitor near-Earth objects and orbital dynamics because a mature civilization absolutely has to act early and decisively. Our survival depends entirely on awareness and preparation, rather than just relying on blind luck. So I'll leave you with this final, kind of provocative thought. Just how delicate is our place in the cosmos? Our planet is precious not because it's guaranteed, but because it is so incredibly rare, fragile, and alive. So the next time you step outside and look up at the stars, maybe take a second to consider just how precious our borrowed time really is, and what we must learn to survive the edges of reality.